Dave. All right, cool. So, it was 1921. The bombs hadn't yet fallen because it was before World War II. The coolest war, the one that they still make films about because it was the fun one. The street was cold and dark. A slow mist was rolling in from behind the bakers. Let's go with that. The bakery, which exuded mist into the street, was named... Thank you for being ready. The bakery was named Assimilation. It was an unusual kind of bakery. While they were keen on making traditional bakery products like bread and croissants, they also liked to introduce other things to their bakery. They thought it was the time sausage rolls were quite cool, Cornish pasties were okay, but so too were children. Children could be acquired easily on the streets of Derby. One such child named... Raincoat. I don't know if you've been to Derby. Maybe we should do a brief recap and explain something about Derby. Derby is an impoverished city, a very sad place. Despite its rich history of industry, it was left behind in the early 20th century because it didn't have enough to do in the war. As a result, they were left with only aspirations for their children. And so the people of Derby began to name their children things they wanted. Hence, Raincoat. In Raincoat's gang, because there's always a gang of children, there were 3 other children. One was called... Microscope. His parents were very ambitious. Another was named... Iguanodon. They were history buffs. They were history they didn't remember. Prehistory. So Microscope, Iguanodon. What was the other one called? Metaphysical and Raincoat. Metaphysical was the oddest of the bunch. He had very thick glasses. He fought a lot in the corner. He was beaten repeatedly by the other children for using 2 long words. No polysyllabics here, said Raincoat, unaware that his name had 2 syllables in it. Alas, there were no schools in Derby at this time. Anyway, we returned to the Assimilation Bakery where shit was going down. 1921, a misty morning, a baker looms from a doorway. His name is... Blenheim. A reasonable name. Blenheim the baker looked out from his window through the mist and saw, the children are back. There's been a shortage of meat to put in my pasties for some years now, since the end of World War I, when meat was freely available. It's changed since then, and now I must go into the streets and seek things out like children. His eye alit. Alit? Can you alit? One can alight. Can you also alit? First person? No, present tense? Yes. Sorry?
Past tense.
Past tense, alit. Is alit past tense? So previously he had looked out the window and spotted raincoat. But he remembered raincoats, and when he came back again, sadly without a raincoat, because it was an aspiration of his parents, not a thing that had actually been achieved by them, which was so sad. He was a very wet child. A small wet boy, bedraggled, who thought fondly of... Of what? Granalag.
Yes.
Which is what they called their grandparents. As a collective, they were too poor to have different names for their grandparents, so it was just Granalag and Granalag. He loved them very much, but he didn't spend much time with them, because he mostly ran around in the streets with his little pals, Microscope, Metaphysical, and the other one. Iguanodon! Iguanodon, the weird scaly kid who had a whole bunch of unfortunate skin diseases and lesions all over his body. It might have been plague, or it could just have been psoriasis. That's okay though. If you have that condition, it's alright. Don't be ashamed. It's not 1921. Because in 1921, if you have psoriasis, you get put in a fucking sausage roll. And that is what happened to Iguanodon. Raincoat, you see, had been standing in front of Iguanodon, and when the baker's eye lit upon... did we agree upon a lit? Good. Lit upon Raincoat, Raincoat slid to one side, slippery as he was, being soaked to the skin. Behind him stood Iguanodon, his scaliness allowing him to retain his footing on the brutal cobbles of Derby's roads. And the baker just reached out and grabbed him off the street. Simple times. They were happier times. He could have tucked a child at random in the street and make him into a pie. He dragged Iguanodon into his beautiful bakery, did Mr. Blenheim. He said, "Whoa, you're going to be a lovely pie." He could have used a line from Chicken Run to retort to that, but that hadn't happened yet, so he couldn't say, "I don't want to be a pie, I don't like gravy." Which